Excuse me? Do you know what time it is?
11:30.
Actually, it's adventure time! Yeah! What time is it? What time is it? What time is it? What time is it? What? What time is it? What? Come on, tell me what time is it?
What?
What time is it, guys?
Vampire fighting time!
What time is it?
Who's ready to party?
What time is it?
Fun time.
What time is it? I don't care! Oh, what time is it? What? What time is it?
Yeah, man.
What time is it?
Yogurt chip.
Can you sled on your dog's gut?
Woo!
Yeah!
Yeah!
Can you sing a scream song? Do you think I'm righteous?
I'll slay anything that's evil. That's my deal.
Ow!
Oh, my beard.
That was righteous.
What? What time is it?
Adventure time!
A new cartoon coming in April to Cartoon Network.
Hey Dion,
Yes, Eddie.
what time is it?
Adventure time!
Yeah, it's the Adventure Time episode. Hey everybody, it's me Eddie, and with me is...
This is Dion, and we are back with your favorite time of the day for the Screwy Ain't It podcast.
Yep, and today we're talking about, I want to say like maybe the second generation of Cartoon Network that really, really rejuvenated it and stuff like that.
Just injected a new form of life into a pretty stagnant series. During this time, I remember Uncle Grandpa.
Oh, no, this was like way earlier.
This was even earlier than I remember.
Yeah, because it was, well, I guess we should talk a little bit about the history of the show. So, basically, you can't really talk about the history of Adventure Time without talking about where Cartoon Network was at this point in its history. It's 2010, and things are looking pretty grim for it. Right, the only two shows that people really like and enjoy that are still airing at this time are Chowder and Flapjack, and they both end within this year. And they're still reeling over from like the failure the previous year of CN Reel, and they're just like whatever shows are keeping them afloat are Canadian imports like Total Drama Island and Johnny Test.
Love Total Drama Island.
Yep. And
I can still hear that whip in my head, like as we speak. I just heard it 14 times right now.
Yeah. Yeah. There's that. There's just really not much because like 2000. Actually another thing. 2009 was the year I lost Cartoon Network on my cable package for a while, and like I didn't miss too much. I missed a little bit. I missed the end of Ed, Ed and Eddie. Like, I missed the big picture show. I didn't have cable. Well, I didn't have Cartoon Network on my cable package at that time. So I missed, like, the last episode of Ed, Ed and Eddie. The last big movie.
It was a good movie.
Yeah, so...
It was very good.
I saw it a couple years after. But it was really good. And I guess maybe I'm missing Chowder and Flapjack at this time, too. Which, did make me sad. But,
Definitely some Cartoon Network heavy hitters during the time.
Yeah.
Not as popular as a lot of the Men of Action or the more recent Cartoon Network shows after 2010. Such as, do you remember when Generator Rex was first aired?
That was 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
Well, then we can add that to one of... so it wasn't as at least for me personally, a boring few years of animation.
No, I'd say like it's more like between I want to say like 2007 through 2009 was definitely a dark age for Cartoon Network because like I guess also like we still had the Ben 10 shows, we still had Star Wars Clone Wars airing and stuff like that, and Batman, Brave and the Bold. There were good shows here and there, but it wasn't like when like every week it was like hit after hit of Cartoon Network. It's like maybe just one night of good 2 nights of good shows, Thursday and Friday, when they showed the action shows, and Thursday, Chowder and Flapjack and Total Drama Island.
I'll still say it's better than the post Teen Titans Go era, where all we got was Teen Titans Go and then Amazing World of Gumball for maybe a few episodes before going back to Teen Titans Go.
Exactly. Well, we'll get to them eventually. But
yes, but today we're not here to talk about the old. We're here to talk about
the slightly less old.
Exactly.
Yeah.
With some of our favorite characters, Finn the human and Jake the dog, with their spectacular adventures, wacky, zany, and one of the shows with the best world building that I think a lot of current generations could possibly agree on. Now, if you have another world building show that you think does better than Adventure Time, please let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
But for now, let's start talking about the first episode about Adventure Time.
Okay. Oh, let me just finish the history really quickly. Anyway, it's a dark age for Cartoon Network, and then suddenly, one of the Flapjack storyboard artists, Pendleton Ward, decides to make a pilot with Frederator Studios, who at the time were mainly known for Nickelodeon and such. Anyway, Fred Seibert, he does what he did originally in the 90s with What a Cartoon and World Premiere Tunes, and with Oh Yeah Cartoons for Nickelodeon. He does it again for Nickelodeon in 2008, I want to say, or 7, one of those two. And one with multiple pilots, multiple new creators making new shorts that could potentially become TV shows. One of them was Pendleton Ward, and when he first pitched it, Fred Seibert thought it was just way too weird to be a traditional cartoon show, but he still let him do it anyways, because he was one of the few executives who will actually welcome change and new projects and stuff like that. So he pitches it to Nickelodeon. They reject it, and you're going to get upset when I tell you the answer of which show they picked over it, unless you know it already.
There's only one show in my head that I would absolutely be...
It was Fanboy and Chum Chum.
I knew it. The second you said I would hate it. There is only one Nickelodeon show that really just grinds my gears. I'm going to put that off on the side because this is a Cartoon Network podcast, not a Nickelodeon podcast.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll save my rants for my dear viewers for another day.
Yeah. Anyway, so Nickelodeon rejects it, but they still keep pitching. Eventually, Cartoon Network decides to pitch it. And like I said, it's a very dark period because they are just barely recovering from the failure of CN Real. So they need a new hit show fast. And so they decided to take up a chance with this weird new show. And I think it's safe to say that it paid off very handsomely for them. Because if you remember the early 2010s, Adventure Time was everywhere.
Yes.
You couldn't walk in Target without seeing T-shirts or sweatpants.
Mathematical.
Bunch of toys, all sorts of, a handful of video games. Yeah, it's a very influential show. Dion, do you remember when Adventure Time first came out and how you first saw it?
I was very young when it came out, but Adventure Time left one hell of an impression. The first episode being raising the dead, having a slumber party, and beating zombies blindfolded with sticks is something that I think almost any 10-year-old kid will never really forget. Especially during the time of most animation having a very specific formula when it comes to first episodes. Adventure Time just said, screw the formula. We're just going to go straight for zany, wild characters, and everyone's really interesting. Jake is Jake the dog. He's a stretchy dog with magical powers. He's brothers with a human, obviously man's best friend. We have a princess made out of bubble gum, a whole kingdom of candy, and zombies. What more is there? And the wildest thing is, if a candy person gets scared, they explode. Who thinks of stuff like this? It is such a wild and very strong first impression for a show, even if some could argue it's a little more kiddish in its earlier days. Which, yes, I will. This is what cartoons are. It is for younger audiences. It's a little more child friendly. But even then, I hesitate to say the first few episodes of Adventure Time is child friendly because we have werewolves, zombies, dead partners, and family members. It's very dark.
Yeah, and lots of like very like it's like not maybe not regular show levels of innuendo or like adult jokes, but like it's still pretty. Yeah, it's like and lots of substitution words for swear words and stuff like that.
It's very powerful but the show itself is so zany and so over the top that most people kind of just look over all the subtle details unless you're older. Which, as a child, you never really think about how insane some of these things are happening. It's just so bright, colorful, and funny characters that you don't really think about some of the deeper things that happen. I just realized that the Gumball Guardians at the end of the episode, which for my viewers who are not very familiar with the plot of the episode, we meet our main character Finn and Princess Bubblegum, and she's creating a formula to raise the dead of her fallen candy people. Unfortunately, the formula doesn't quite work out, and she creates zombies instead of full resurrection. So Finn is told he must keep a royal promise to not tell anybody, in fear that if the candy people find out, they will freak out and quite literally explode from fear. After defeating all the zombies and thinking he saved the day, he tells his brother Jake the dog, who is a talking magical dog with stretchy powers, dating a 20-foot long lady rainicorn, who is a unicorn that is very, very long, like a hot dog.
Like a rainbow.
Like a rainbow. As I have said, very zany, a lot of interesting characters. She only speaks Korean. And once he tells his brother, time freezes, no one can move, it's just him and Princess Bubblegum, and spoiler alert, Princess Bubblegum's the one who created the Gumball Guardians. So I don't know if it was intentional or something that was kind of threw to the wayside, but that implies that Princess Bubblegum has found a way to freeze time. I don't know how it works. I don't think we ever got an actual explanation on how that happens. I think it's one of those cutaway jokes. But the lore in Adventure Time is so deep, and it continues on from like the first few from the first season. It's impeccable. It's an impeccable start. It's very, very powerful. Very resonates with a lot of younger video audiences, and it grows with us.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I should say how I got introduced to Adventure Time, in that it took me a while. In that when it first came out, I actually wasn't allowed to watch it, because I think I mentioned this before or not, but one of the first ads was like just like a non sequitur of just like Jake saying,
He'll cheer you up when times are tough and say things like,
You wish you were my butt.
and my mom heard that and she was like, "You're not watching that show." So, and then for like for a while I couldn't watch it and stuff like that. This will lead into whenever we get to a regular show in a while, but it directly links into that one later. But for now, it's like, so I want to say like maybe for a year I wasn't allowed to watch Adventure Time, and then eventually I started maybe not watching it behind her back. I think she just forgot about it, but then I just started watching it, and but I will say I guess maybe since I didn't start with it, I was more of a casual viewer than maybe a full-on fan, so to speak,
I'd say I was also pretty casual. I think most people, especially children, were pretty casual with the show.
Yeah, because, go ahead.
Until we got a few more seasons into it, and then we started seeing an actual plot line develop. Because at first it was just pretty episodic. It was just adventure of the day, like what does Finn have to do to save the day? Which princess does he have to go save? Which villain does he have to go fight? And once we started getting deeper into these characters and more into their backstories, I think a lot of people, that's when they became true fans of Adventure Time.
It's funny you also say that. So like, in the meantime, I think I was just like watching, regular show, and it's like that one became a personal favorite of mine. So it's like, it's funny. I'd always go to Target or Walmart or whatever and see all the Adventure Times toys, and I'd be like, "Where are the regular show toys?" And they did make regular show toys, and they were really bad, enough to a point that they made a whole episode about them.
Yeah.
But that's up for another day. And another point is also, it's like, obviously, another thing is that Adventure Time brought serialization, I guess I want to say, like, back into mainstream television animation in a big way. Because, like, it was for the first time in a while where it's like, obviously, there were still action cartoons that have, like, heavy continuity, like Ben 10.
Generator X.
Or the...
My Symbiotic Titan that came out.
Yeah, and we'll get to that one too, and a bunch of other action shows because obviously it just comes with the genre, I suppose. But you didn't really see that in like daytime shows, like say Phineas and Ferb or SpongeBob, or like a bunch of other shows, or like a lot of Cartoon Network shows like Chowder or Flapjack and stuff like that. There's like continuity, like maybe they'll recognize a character from like a season ago. But, like, obviously nothing like Adventure Time where it's, like...
No strong character or story progression in most of these shows. Unless it's, like, a 2-episode special where they learn some big lesson or maybe a subtle change happens among one of the characters.
Yeah. So it's, like...
That is true. A lot of shows were primarily...
episodic.
Yes.
And, and then, like, Adventure Time comes in... and influences pretty much the next generation of animation where it's like, yeah, now we have stories, we have a continuous plot, and eventually leads to like Gravity Falls, Steven Universe, Star Versus, a bunch of shows I'm sure we'll also get to discussing in passing as well and stuff like that. And here's the thing. I think, again, I got into Adventure Time a little too late to really become super invested in it because obviously, as influential as it was, I just ended up getting more attached to, like, the subsequent shows after, It's like, obviously, I don't know if anybody really knows this about me. Gravity Falls is my favorite TV show of all time, And then, like, I had to make sure every other week I was, like, watching whatever new episode of, like, Steven Universe or... Star Versus was.
Every week or every few months with Steven?
Oh, well, maybe for the first time it started every week and stuff like that. It's like, well, the whole hiatus thing. Which, another thing, I do remember Adventure Time was actually a weekly show for, like, the first couple of years.
Yes.
Where it's like, every week you'd see the new ad where it goes, like, on the next episode of Adventure Time. And it's like... they got in, like, I think their 4th season in just 2 years after the show came out, which is pretty crazy when you think about it even now, where it's like, if a streaming show actually happens to get a 2nd season nowadays, you won't see it for, like, a year the shortest, And it's like, now, and, like...
during this time, also, since most episodes are 2 episodes in one in a 30-minute runtime... because pretty much each Adventure Time episode was always around 11 to 14 minutes.
Yeah.
So they were very short. They were very fast, and the pacing was really good for a lot of these shows. Like they never felt too long. They never felt too short either. Maybe for a few exceptions for certain people, but primarily they were really easy to digest. And the earlier seasons were a lot smaller, and certain seasons only had, I think, like 12 to 16 episodes. Some got like 24. But typically, they were all relatively short seasons.
Yeah.
For what was for what a standard now would be like. You get 8 episodes in the first season, and they're like 40 minutes long or an hour, depending. So I definitely think this thing is still around the same in terms of how much production value old versus new is.
I would say so. Although, like, I do agree that like a lot of people would just prefer like. Maybe a 20-episode season is like we don't, and maybe not drop them all at once, see it weekly so that like you keep the momentum going.
Keep them coming back. it stays relevant longer.
Exactly, yeah. And it's like, I think maybe sometimes audiences are patient because, like, you know, I don't know, Stranger Things still has yet to come back and people still want to see it and stuff like that. So, and, like, you know, but also a lot of indie animation nowadays, like Digital Circus will probably only release like episodes every half year or something, and so on and so forth.
I think with the rise of streaming itself, it's definitely changed how people enjoy media, and with how busy a lot of people's lives are, it's really hard to just tune in or record the show. It's just a lot easier. I think it's the convenience of being able to just boot up your favorite streaming service or renting it on Amazon or at the library and just watching the entire season of a show. One of the examples for me was I was too young for Game of Thrones when it was airing. Yeah. Everybody talked about Game of Thrones, but I was too young and I wasn't really around. And around after high school, I saw some clips and I said, I want to give Game of Thrones a chance. It looked really interesting. So I went to the library, I saw the first season on DVD, and I rented it. And I can only imagine if I was around during this time, having to wait months or like every other week for the next episode of Game of Thrones, I'd be losing my mind every single time because the cliffhangers, the story, and I think that's how it is for a lot of people. Being part of that cultural phenomenon of these popular shows definitely impacts heavily. And with that, episodic shows did have a strong place. But now, unfortunately, with how busy people's lives are, everybody prefers the convenience of being able to just watch the show at their own time. I don't want to have to try to get off work at 6 p.m. just to make it for the 7:30 showing of Adventure Time, Game of Thrones, Steven Universe. Because it was for kids, like, of course. Most kids were off at school around 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
But, the kids grow up and sometimes they just want to finish their show. I mean, One Piece has been going on for like decades and people are still waiting every week for their next episode.
Exactly.
So
it's just a weird situation either way, just like, you'd like to have a little more weekly thing to look forward to, but at the same time, it's like also, people don't get around to watching shows until they're done, so that they can just watch it all in one go and stuff like that. And like, I don't know, I guess it just depends on the person. I just prefer it weekly and stuff like that. But anyways, let's get to talking about this first episode. Slumber Party, what is it, Slaughter or something?
I thought it was Slumber Party Panic.
Slumber Party Panic. And, it's like you said, it's definitely a interesting first episode, because usually a formula for like a lot of pilots or first episodes is just sort of like meeting the characters, just sort of like, just getting to know them, introduce them to their supporting cast, their settings, so on, what the general conflict or plot of the show is going to be and stuff like that. And technically Adventure Time already had a pilot, and it was pretty prevalent online. People saw it on YouTube and stuff like that. But so I guess maybe they sort of felt, we don't really need to reintroduce Finn and Jake, let's just jump them into an adventure already. And so, yeah. And like, yeah, it's a pretty interesting first episode, because like out of the gate, you already have zombie candy people. And like, these giant, like you said, these giant gumball, like almost like
Gumball
Guardians, and stuff like that, who like, sort of established the grand scale of this world, and even then they're just like such a minuscule part of what it's going to eventually become and stuff like that.
90% of the episode is just that you see them in the background blowing bubbles on the walls of the Candy Kingdom.
Exactly, yeah. And then like, and like, yeah, it's like, to be fair also, I do think the first season of Adventure Time is a bit of growing pains in a way, where it's like, obviously, I think it's still a fun show, but it's not really sure what it's exactly going to be yet, you know? Because, like, a lot of episodes sort of jump around in plot and stuff like that, because, like, there would be some episodes where they'll introduce these different characters, establish some things about Finn and Jake's past, like, the episode with the mountain, the Crying Mountain, if you remember that
Oh,
one.
I remember Crying Mountain very well.
Yeah, and like, basically just sort of, and like, I feel like Adventure Time has always been a very odd and like weird show, but they do tone it down a little more once it gets a little more serious and stuff like that. So it's like, I want to say like maybe like around season 4 or something, they probably wouldn't do, well, maybe they would, but like, because I forget about the episode where Jake just decides to become a brick for the day and stuff like that. But it's like, obviously they put more of an emphasis on later on its story, its plot, and its characters most of all, and how each one evolves over time and stuff. Especially Finn,
Yeah, Finn as the main character has definitely evolved the most as the show has progressed. But don't be dissuaded that the other characters don't grow at all.
Oh yeah.
There are so many interesting developments that happen between each character, and whether you like some or hate some, like I do. Some being tyrannical dictators, or some people not being as emotionally mature, or with a really dark and tragic past. Linking certain characters or certain ailments to real life diseases like Alzheimer's, and so on. Heartbreak, like found family, losing. The Adventure Time universe gets really dark and very profound in a lot of its messaging as the seasons go on. I don't disagree. I do think the first season is I think they are wanting to play it safe. They're wanting to just capture the younger audience, but I also think it's because during this time they were trying to just get their first audience.
Yeah.
They were trying to, because during this time, I'm sure they did the research of the focus group who's watching, and it's primarily going to be young kids, like maybe between 10 to 13. They mostly like more wacky, zany humor
and fart jokes.
Yeah, and fart jokes. It was like there was probably like 2 fart jokes in the first episode. In the first episode. But what makes Adventure Time so great, and I think that a lot of people appreciate the most about it, is that as the show went on, it changed its humor. It's changed. The characters grew alongside the watchers. I think that's what makes Adventure Time so profound.
It's a very coming of age show when you really get down to it.
Oh, it truly is.
Like, we start with Finn at like, I want to say like 10 or 12.
No, he's like 12.
Yeah, Finn at 12, and I think it ends when he's like 16 or 17.
Yeah, he was basically almost an adult by the time the series is over, and he's grown so much from first relationship, like finding out, like coming to his own as his own person, becoming his own individual, learning so much that I think a lot of people can take away a lot of good messages from the show, including the ones where Finn really messed up his relationships and couldn't recover all of them.
Yeah.
Some things just would never be the same, and these messages aren't really seen in a lot of early Cartoon Network shows, I would say.
Yeah, obviously, because like I said, Adventure Time changed up the formula, because like up until then, they're all just joke shows, essentially. I like the non-action shows, I want to say, like like Dexter, Johnny Bravo, Foster's, Powerpuff Girls to a degree, and all these other shows. It's like just basically jokes, not much for character development and stuff.
They'll have their moments.
They'll have their moments, but like I don't really think Dexter changes as a character from like the first episode to the last episode, or it's like, or definitely not Johnny.
Yeah, they'll touch on certain topics for sure, and make commentary on certain issues, such as Professor from Powerpuff Girls trying to find love after, even though she was a supervillain. Brought up a great question of do the parents deserve happiness? Not at the risk of their kids, but do parents deserve to try to find happiness after they have their children, or should their priority always be their children? Yeah. These questions that get brought up.
It's funny. I think that's the first episode of Powerpuff Girls too, the one with Sedusa that you're talking about.
Was it the first episode?
It might be.
It was very episodic, so
It was a very. I remember it was a very early episode.
Okay, right. That's something that we would definitely have to look more into.
We'll get to that one soon enough. It's literally on the list there.
Oh, very soon, very soon.
Yeah.
But with that in mind, a lot of shows have touched on adult themed topics as the good ones usually do, but a lot of these shows don't tackle it consistently in a way that Adventure Time does. I would say a lot of psychological and not morality, philosophically, yeah,
especially a lot of later episodes where it's like the Midnight Gospel.
The Midnight Gospel. I am not familiar with that one.
It was basically the Adventure Time follow up in a way where it's like the episodes that were definitely more philosophical, more spiritual, stuff like that. Basically, make a whole show just around that. You know, it was really good. Recommended to anybody listening if you want more Pendleton Ward. Who just recently announced a new project with Rebecca Sugar, Ian Jones-Cordy, and Gendy Tartakovsky. They're all making and Patrick McHale. They're all making a show together.
Oh.
Which should be very interesting. I'll be looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to that too. It's funny because Steven Universe keeps popping up in my feed recently, and I will not lie, I was one of those people that were corrupted by all the negativity that came from a lot of dissing on the Steven Universe, because I loved Steven Universe when it was coming out. Unfortunately, I fell out of love because of the long hiatuses and the minimal amount of story progression that was happening during the big old Steven bombs.
Yeah. 4
episodes of filler or nothing really happening, and then the 5th episode we get 10 minutes of something new.
Yeah. I think it's like you said earlier. It's like I complained about all this like we don't get weekly shows anymore. But then it's like, you know, it's like, yeah, I could kind of remember that a lot of people fell out of Steven Universe because they kind of, at least with how Cartoon Network aired it, lollygagged a lot. And
if Steven Universe was weekly, it would have still been as popular, if not probably one of the most popular shows on Cartoon Network. And it was still a very popular show.
Yeah.
It could have been probably one of the greats if it wasn't for the hiatus. I don't know how true that is, only because I do think a lot of the episodes were kind of just fluff.
Yeah.
Not a lot of substance in a lot of them. But the actual like lore of Steven Universe goes really deep. And then everything after the last season was really... They really found their footing in how they want to tell the story in the later seasons.
Yeah.
I would say.
I'd say so too. Yeah, you know, and it's a recurring thing. Like, I do think there was definitely plans in Steven Universe. Obviously, when they originally it was just gonna end with like the episode with Lapis where she goes back to Homeworld. Mm-hmm. That was originally it. They said like, okay, here's where the show will end if we don't get renewed for another season.
Which is actually a pretty good like ending point.
Yeah,
it felt very satisfying for the most part and left a lot of open-ended questions.
Yeah.
And it always leaves an opportunity to come back, which
exactly.
I think they did a really good job with that.
And it's like it didn't like, you know, obviously I think they had a plan, but you could kind of tell also with the first season of Steven Universe, there's like they're trying to adjust to it. It's like I have the art book over there on my shelf, and it's very interesting to see like a lot of the early ideas for the show before they really try to introduce Homeworld. They wanted to do maybe even a little more of like Steven being friends with Petey and Onion, you know, which we don't really see in the show because they sort of just realize like, oh, well, if Steven has a couple of friends, like, you know, he's not going to feel as isolated just being the sole crystal gem in a way and stuff like that. Like maybe it would give him a little too much, maybe comfort or like emotional support or something.
Interesting ideas. I would just have to go back and rewatch because I did fall off the last few seasons because of the long hiatuses.
Right.
So I'm not, as much as I loved what I saw, I am probably need to go back and watch because it is a thought that I've been having lately.
Yeah.
But we're gonna save that for when we eventually do get to Steven Universe.
Exactly.
This conversation.
Yeah.
But,
back to Adventure Time. First episode, and like, yeah, it's like, but it also, I think it still establishes a lot of Adventure Time's tone and humor, where it's like it's kind of hard to define Adventure Time's humor in some way. It's like obviously it's
changed. It changed greatly.
It changes, but like obviously they still keep the weird little phrases, just sort of the weird out there, you know, like ideas that will come back later, sometimes in horrifying ways, like the deer and stuff like that. And like, you know, and it's like, you know, they're establishing it. Obviously, I can tell from Pendleton Ward's style, he just really likes very absurd, very surreal looking visuals and animation and stuff like
which
that.
I can greatly appreciate. It's definitely a take on D&D style fantasy.
Exactly.
with a lot of the adventures, because a lot of these adventures are pulled straight from a one-shot campaign, from a classic D&D story.
Well, that's basically like how a lot of writers will sometimes go to like the writer's wheel, the story wheel, to like get out of stories. I think a lot of the first season episodes of Adventure Time, they said like they literally just plotted it out from D&D campaigns, which you could definitely tell.
Yeah, you
with
could
how
definitely
they
feel it.
diverge and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect for for an episodic series too, especially when it gives you the opportunity to also plan out your future stories too, and using certain ideas, because Adventure Time is what they're really great at too, is making consistent callbacks that actually work well into the future of the story, and that's something that people can greatly appreciate. Because being able to call back something, or like, oh, I remember this, like this was in the first season or second season, is what makes people rewatch your show. What makes people appreciate it in the long run over just, okay, that was nice. This plot device that they introduced like 2-3 seasons ago, never see it again. All right, what? It makes people care less about the story.
I will say I do remember a little bit where it sort of fell out a little bit in popularity, and I want to say like around like 2015. I want to say it's like, I think around like season 4 or 5, where it's like people were like, because like I
Some
think
of the best seasons too.
yeah, it's like, well, I think it was like season 5 they mentioned was like a lot of their least favorite season, because like it had the episode where basically Beezy, you remember that episode with the bee?
Oh, I'll never forget Beezy.
Yeah.
I'll never forget all the, it definitely a lot of coming of age, and a lot of subtext for certain innuendos of growing up and losing your flower.
Yeah, well, that one, yeah, it's like, and like, not only that, it's like, also, it's funny, the other episode we're going to talk about, the first one with Lumpy Space Princess, you know, it sort of paints a weird picture of her later on, too, where it's like...
Oh, no, I never liked Lumpy Space Princess, so all it did was just confirm all my biases, all my hateful biases. I did not like Lumpy Space Princess. I do not think she is a good person. I don't think she's a really good friend, and she deserved to be homeless. I will say that. She like, when she got kicked out and she lived with the wolves, and the wolves turned on her because she was annoying, she deserved all of it.
Yeah, and like, okay, like, well, we'll skirt around the thing because of YouTube regulations, but like, you know, obviously a very unwholesome thing she did to Finn in that episode too.
Oh, we can say it's like she took advantage of Finn.
Yeah.
His lowest.
Yep.
And like, while Finn has made a lot of mistakes and he's currently not in a healthy space right now, he was definitely taken advantage of during this time. He is still figuring himself out too.
Yeah, that was the same season where like they revealed Gunther was like a space demon who was exiled to Earth and stuff like that.
Lot of lore in the Adventure Time story.
Yeah, but they never come back to that one really, because like
they do actually.
Well, just like as a joke in the last episode.
No, there was quite a few episodes where Gunther was addressed. We actually see how it happened and why Gunther wants the crowd, why he's attached to Ice King. One thing that you can definitely say, they don't really leave any real loose ends in the Adventure Time series.
That's true. Yeah.
Pretty much, even the Vault episode, something that I thought I would never get answered as a kid. I'm like, oh, I'll never figure this out. Eventually, we touched back on Yoko and the ghost in Finn's head. Adventure Time doesn't leave almost any real loose plot points.
Yeah, at least for characters you care about and stuff like that.
Even for the side characters, we had a whole arc of what was his name? Root Beer Guy. Had
that's right.
Arc, between becoming a cop and then dying and then becoming a zombie. And I don't remember if he came back, but oh no, he did come back as Dirt Beer Guy, I think. Anyway, he was not quite a zombie, but he wasn't Root Beer Guy anymore. And his wife leaving him not leaving him, but she moved on because he died. So,
one thing I also really appreciate about Adventure Time is like they don't, it and regular show, they were both pretty formative and like they just were honest about relationships too.
which I think is very good for a lot of younger generations.
Exactly, yeah. Because, like, yeah, we'll talk about more in a regular show, but in Adventure Time, it just sort of, you see a boy grow up. He has a crush on an older girl. Obviously, it can't be reciprocated, except maybe for the weird handful of episodes where she ages down. And then, but either way, she goes back to being an adult again. And then it's like, and then, like, he gets his first girlfriend. But then, like, he has a weird, maybe, I shouldn't kink shame. He has what's basically implied to be a masochism thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, we can kind of see it throughout the series.
Yeah. And then
Finn is an interesting character because even though he is the hero and by as good as he is heavily flawed, and not just because he's primarily because he is just a young boy. He's a young teenage boy with his parents died when he was young.
Actually, that's another thing. Like, his dad turns out is alive. His mom is stuck in a computer program.
The ones that raised him.
Jake's parents.
Yeah, Jake's parents.
And they're adoptive. They're adoptive parents too, because like Jake's also a space alien and stuff.
Yeah. For all my viewers, I know there's a lot of context, a lot of spoilers for you, but definitely would recommend you watch the episode before, which we'll probably be putting in a spoiler warning in the beginning of this.
Hopefully whoever listens to this podcast has just seen the whole show of Adventure Time too, because we're spoiling literally everything to the last episode right now.
Almost everything. I'd say we'll probably cut back on a lot of the rest of the spoilers.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely would recommend giving it a go, because as zany and wacky as a lot of this stuff sounds, it is told in such a phenomenal way.
Yeah.
Especially after the first few seasons. It is a wonderful story. It is a great story to grow up with, and to watch now. You're like, almost no matter how old you are, Adventure Time has a place. It has a story that is worth seeing.
I will say, I think which is your favorite season?
That's hard because since the seasons kind of blurred together for me, I remember my favorite episodes, I would say. I liked the Flame Princess arc. I think Flame Princess is definitely one of my favorite characters because of how much she grows as her own character without Finn. Because most of the time, the girlfriend character, the main character, ends up just being very shallow, one-dimensional, or like uninteresting.
Yeah.
But she's extremely interesting. She goes through a whole arc of like just wanting straight honesty. Did a whole hostile takeover of her father's kingdom, and the number one rule was, you just got to be honest. You want to come into the kingdom? Just tell us why you're here. We'll let you in.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you committed a crime? Why you committed a crime? Tell us the reason. All right. It's like, you're good to go. And her entire arc was just great, especially growing without Finn. Finn learning what he did was wrong. We'll save that for, because I think it's one of the most popular episodes, Fire and Ice.
It's a very contentious episode.
It is a very contentious episode, because a lot of people feel like Finn acted out of character, but I strongly disagree, because I think a lot of young boys, young girls, not even just young, just people in general, end up doing things to hurt their partner unintentionally sometimes.
Yeah.
Or they're just blinded by their own interest.
Yeah.
And people get hurt. And I think that was a very good cautionary tale. I think it was really important for Finn's character. Yeah. And I do think it's something that he would do, because as selfless as he is, it's also his first relationship and his first time navigating it. Especially with the whole cosmic owl stuff going on.
Yeah.
Which people could say, oh, it wasn't fair. Like, the writer just wanted to break him up. They didn't know what to do anymore. It's like, no, there are plenty of people that I'm sure we have all met that have sabotaged themselves, not always in a relationship, but in one way or another.
I will say the whole thing with like Flame Princess, I think, does eventually redeem itself in the end, where it's like eventually how he resolves it with Flame Princess.
Yes.
And like, and I think obviously, I think people were upset that they just broke up Finn and Flame Princess.
Yeah, a lot of people like to live vicariously through the main character. So getting the hot girlfriend, metaphorically and literally, was definitely a heavy blow, because I think a lot of people were saying, "Oh, Finn would never do that," or "I would never do that." Like,
yeah, you would. You would. Let's be honest. You would. All right, come on.
If you had a cosmic dream that was telling you to do things, especially in the dead of night, you'd probably make similar mistakes as him. If not, you'd probably do something else.
Exactly.
And let's be honest, most of y'all wouldn't even be able to pull Flame Princess. So let's not even.
Yeah, there's another thing. Come on, like, you guys, come on. Seriously.
Yeah.
No, it took her a little while to get to really embrace Finn a little bit too, you know? Because, like, obviously, originally she just thought he was going to try and kill her dad or something.
No, kill her.
Yeah, kill her.
Because he was a water elemental, because he was a crier.
Exactly, yeah. And, like, you know.
Yeah, so you got to show your emotions if you
And
want.
technically, Jake was the one who, like, kind of, like, intervened or whatever, because, like, he just wanted him to try and get over Princess Bubblegum.
Yeah. Which, hey, sometimes you just need a good dog out there for you.
Exactly.
But with all that said, I think we start wrapping it up on how our overall thoughts on Adventure Time in, like, the first episodes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the first we saw Slumber Party Panic and Lumpy Space. I gotta look up the names of the episodes. Blah blah blah.
It was Slumber Party Panic and Trouble in Lumpy Space.
Yeah, Trouble in Lumpy Space. I think it's funny too, because these first episodes don't even introduce two of the major characters that would later become, like, a part of Adventure Time's big identity, Marceline and Ice King. You know, it's funny how, which Ice King would, like, help define the tonal change of Adventure Time from a silly little goofy cartoon to, like, a more emotional depth show. Obviously, just, like, basically seeing the episode,
Simon's episode,
where it's like we basically see his, and, like, they're interconnected too, because, like, Marceline is just as important to his development as he is to hers and stuff like that, you know. And it's like, I don't know if they planned it. I probably would bet they wouldn't, but it's like, it just generally felt right that, like, they made it feel right that, like, you know, the vampire villain from one episode and, like, the main
primary villain
or antagonist, so to speak, from a bunch of episodes would end up not only being so important to, like, their own characters and their own development, but also just the world building of Adventure Time. How, like, yeah, the land of Ooh is a post-apocalyptic Earth, you know, which is, like, honest, and, like, also, like, how vague they sort of are at the beginning about it. And it's like, obviously you think, oh,
the Great Mushroom War.
Exactly. Like, Finn and Jake you think Finn and Jake are just these humans in human and a dog in a magical land with, like, talking animals and candy and so on and so forth. But, like, and then, like, you know, the episode with the businessmen comes in, and it's like, you know, it
adds a whole new layer of context that we don't really touch too deeply on, but it definitely adds another question. It's, where are the rest of the humans? Because clearly there's some that still existed in an iceberg. Finn's the last human that's constantly being addressed.
Exactly.
Goes through an entire identity crisis.
And, like, the Mushroom Wars, when you get down to it, is just, like, obviously it sounds sort of cute on paper, but then when you really analyze it and, like, see the show, and it's like, oh no, they're talking about a nuclear holocaust and stuff like that.
Nuclear winters, creating zombie. It was a very dark reveal of the greater existence of Adventure Time. And that's what makes it such an appealing show.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, I think. Because I do think having darker themes in your show is what draws people in. Was what keeps people there. I do think a lot of people come in for, like, you know, the fun colors, the zany laughs. But I think... Which
Adventure Time still offers plenty of as well.
Plenty of. But when it comes to long-term retention, especially as the audience gets older, most people are going to start gravitating a little towards, like, the more grown-up themes, I would say.
Yeah, obviously, you know, that's what sticks, and that's it's one of the reasons why Adventure Time is probably one of the longest-running Cartoon Network franchises. I mean, it's still technically going through Fiona and Cake, and I think they're having another spin-off too.
I think they're continuing the next season of Fiona and Cake right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think maybe a mini midquel of like Finn and Jake when they're younger too, like slightly right before the show happens and stuff like that.
See, I trust the showrunners, but man, I feel like Adventure Time ended at such a great point with the Days of Future or the
Days
series
of
after.
Future Past.
Yeah. The series that
Futurelands, I think.
Futurelands, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And like X-Men. No.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I feel like, unfortunately, I hate to bring the podcast down a bit, but it's like Cartoon Network sort of become a bit of a zombie franchise in general, where it's like, there's no new original shows really right now. I mean, there have been a couple announced, like we're recording this like right after Annecy 2025, where they announced a handful of original shows. I'm looking forward to those. Hope those do well. But at this moment, it's like there's really nothing new on Cartoon Network. Gumball's coming back later this year.
But is that on Hulu?
It's on. That's another thing. It just goes to show, like, also how cable's died over the years. It's like they're not even putting one of their big hit shows on Cartoon Network necessarily anymore. Now it's going to be on a different streaming service. And obviously the whole thing with Warner Brothers and Max and stuff like that, and how that sort of blew up in their face.
Yeah, right now the current shows airing Cartoon Network now are We Baby Bears. Not even We Bear Bears. We Baby Bears.
Right.
Bat Wheels. Teen Titans Go. Tiny Toons Looniversity. DC Superhero Girls. Elliot from Earth. Never even heard of that one.
Half of these have already ended too.
I
Are you doing that off of Google?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. But like
Amazing World of Gumball. Yeah, these are the shows that are airing.
Yeah.
It says.
Basically, I hate to say it, but it's like, but that's one of the reasons why I want to do this podcast. It's like I just want to look back on the good memories that Cartoon Network has given us.
The good shows.
Exactly, and it's like, I mean, I don't doubt it. I'm sure the new Adventure Time stuff will be fine and good and stuff like that. But it would be nice. But we are getting a few original things, also from Adult Swim too, which we'll get to in the next episode, the first Adult Swim show. Anyway, okay, I think we should start wrapping up a little bit on our thoughts, like you said. And I guess, like, briefly talk about Lumpy Space. It was an episode that introduced a character that I want to say is sort of like the Cheese or Fred Fredburger of Adventure Time, in that, like, obviously it's a very catchphrase,
What the lump?
friendly character, exactly, or it's like a very quotable character that people find funny, certain people, and also a very contentious character that as many people would also find annoying, such as yourself.
Yeah, as we've already touched on the character themselves. In the early seasons, it wasn't nearly as bad, but not an enjoyable character for a lot, yes, including myself. To briefly touch over the plot of the episode, Finn and Jake are having a tea party bouncing on marshmallows with Princess Bubblegum that we've met the episode before, and a new character, Lumpy Space Princess, a floating princess that is made entirely of lumps. Imagine just a vine of grapes. It's just grapes, just lumped up together. With a very... What accent would you say?
It's a Valley Girl accent.
That's an insult to Valley Girl. I'm going to be honest. I do not think it's a Valley Girl.
She's voiced by Pendleton Ward, which, like, when he... Yeah, it's a silly voice that he probably did around the office, and he probably thought, hey, this will be a funny character.
I believe that. Accidentally bites Jake, and he starts lumping up. He starts growing lumps all over his body. And it turns out that if he doesn't get a cure that's in lumpy space, he will become a lumpy space person. Completely change his voice, basically loses his powers. It's a horrible fate. It's a horrible fate for all involved. And they go to Lumpy Space Princess to find the cure, but she's easily distracted between getting angry at her parents, needing to borrow the car to get to the point for the cure, calling her best friend, and then...
Although that did lead to one of my favorite lines in the whole episode where her ex-boyfriend goes like, "You miss me yet, Lumpy Space Princess?" Which,
by the way, if your partner looks their ex in the eye while they're with you and asks them, "Do you miss me?" that is a person you should stay with. That's my free dating advice for today. Leave that person. They got issues that they need to work through.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jake is slowly turning into a lumpy space person, and if he doesn't get the cure by midnight, he will be a lumpy space person forever, or by sundown. They go to a party, eventually get the cure. Finn having to have himself turn lumpy by a bunch of the smooth poses, as they call them, who have the cure. Falls down through a building to save his brother after a really funny exchange after they both turned lumpy, with a little bit of reverse psychology, unintended from Finn.
Yeah.
They both get cured, and they have a big old dance party right after. It was a good episode.
Yeah.
It's a good episode.
Yeah.
It definitely it keeps expanding the universe of Adventure Time.
Yeah, because we see a different, maybe not land of Ooh, but like just a different land in the world in general, just like the lumpy space, you know. And like, yeah, it's like, obviously you could tell it's like each episode they're trying to introduce a new character, a new aspect of the world, and so on and so forth. It's like a lot of first season shows.
Yeah, they're just trying to feed you a little bit so you're not overwhelmed in the beginning by all this new information and characters. Very, very great storytelling from the creators.
Yeah, and like I want to eventually get to like my favorite episode from season 1, Billy. Billy, which I love the song so much.
No tongue. Who's the greatest warrior ever? A hero of renown. Who stayed in evil ocean? Who cast the Lich King down? Billy, and that time the evil Viking captured the depth of hell. Who saved her with some free bread? She offered him a hand. Billy, also, he fought a bear. Billy!
Oh, yeah!
I couldn't stop laughing for a minute after the song because it's just like the lyrics are so ridiculous and like so spontaneous and stuff like that. I don't know. As I love Billy. It was so I got so upset with basically what happened to Billy.
We'll say that for another time.
We'll definitely do that episode because it's very important to the history of Adventure Time.
The trajectory of the show in general, it definitely changed a lot in terms of who's safe and who isn't.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a very, very wonderful show. Adventure Time, I think, had a very strong start. Definitely was trying to just get its audience and get people introduced to the world. They did a fantastic job. And it is one of the best Cartoon Network shows. I think that's what a lot of people can agree on.
Exactly. It's like, there's a reason people you'll still see someone with a BMO phone case.
Yep. BMO
walking
phone,
around.
or backpack, tattoos. I saw a person with a bunch of Adventure Time tattoos, actually, not too long ago.
Which I bet you they got like 10 years ago and stuff like that.
Most likely.
And like, it's like...
And maybe more recently, because I think they were around our age. But
oh, okay then.
Anyway, I think it's time to call it. We're about reaching the end of our podcast.
Yep. Well, thanks for joining us for the first episode on the Check It era, as I like to call it, where it's like basically the renaissance of Cartoon Network in a way. And we're going to be talking about a lot of other great shows. We're going to talk about Regular Show. We're going to talk about Gumball, the Looney Tunes Show, Generator X, Symbiotic Titan.
Generator X.
We're definitely going to get to Generator X. I promise you that.
It's so good. It was so good. I'm so sad it didn't blow up as it should have.
I will say it lasted a lot longer than most other shows, and I think ended on a decent note.
It actually finished.
Yeah, it actually finished. It's like unfortunately more than you could say for Symbiotic Titan.
Yeah.
Or What's another?
But we'll touch on those on our later as we go.
Yeah. Next week we're gonna start with our first Adult Swim show, the granddaddy of Adult Swim, Space Ghost, Coast to Coast. A bit of a bittersweet one, due to the recent passing of George Lowe, the voice of Space Ghost. But we'll save that one for next week, or next time we're here.
This is Dion from Screwy Animated Podcast signing out with my co-host Eddie. Sending them off.
Bye-bye, everybody. Check out these lumps.